where the actors go through all of their movements. They have their scripts in their hand. They don't have hair and makeup, but it's a technical rehearsal. It's for the cameras, for the sound people, for the lighting people. If the camera people make a mistake or are not the camera's not in focus, it's not a big deal because it's not being recorded. So, after doing that and having the directors see you on camera, and they were all very friendly and helpful. And after a while, I started to do the actual camera work, and it was great. It was my dream, and
really?
And there it was, and the months that I didn't work at ABC, I got hooked up with shooting hockey games, basketball games for the old Sports Channel network.
And these are the major NHL and
the
NBA?
New Jersey Devils and the New Jersey Nets at the time, and then I got into the Madison Square Garden network, and I started to do the Knicks and the Rangers. So I got a lot of other experience beside the soap opera work, and then back in April, then the ABC would hire you again, and the process for that is, when there are permanent spots open, they would take their best people. And it took me 7 years, not because I wasn't good, but they just didn't have any permanent spots. And then in 1987, I got a call from the top management in the engineering department, and he says, "I have some good news, and we'd like to hire you full time." And that was it.
Nice.
So
now backpedaling a little bit. Now, when they shoot a soap opera episode, now can I call it soap opera or daytime drama?
I'm easy. You can call it either one.
Yeah. How many cameras are there?
Usually there's 4 regular pedestal cameras, which are the big cameras with they have the steering wheels, and there could be smaller handheld cameras which can get into tighter spaces. Like if there's one of the actors is going into a closet, just say, you can't really fit one of these big pedestal cameras in the little closet area. So they have one of these little handheld cameras on a smaller tripod. So it depends upon the director and what, their needs. But generally 4 of these pedestal cameras would be used for a scene.
And they're huge.
Yes.
They were big back in the day.
Yeah. And it was really an art, because I think doing a soap opera camera, if you were good at it, was like the top of the industry, because you have to follow an actor all around the set, sometimes on a real tight close-up. You have to maintain proper framing, and you have to keep them in focus, and it was hard. It's hard. People might think that doing a sports camera might be more difficult, but you're usually on a much wider shot. So framing or, focus is not exact, where, if you're just on a much tighter shot of an actor, it's more critical.
Now, when they're recording the episode, there is a director. Are they cutting live, or are they just getting coverage and editing later?
Years ago, we used to just cut live, and then I'd say in the later 90s, we started doing what's called isoing, like isolating. Each camera would get fed to a separate tape machine. So, you would go about shooting the scene like a normal scene, but in the edit, if the producers decided, you know what, we missed a reaction shot of, just say, Bo Buchanan. I want to put in a reaction of Bo there. So they had the freedom, because all the cameras were, like I say, recording all the time, that the editor would just pop in a reaction shot of Bo. And, the producers were happy.
Mm-hmm. Now, is there a typical day of filming an episode? Is it you film a whole episode in a day, or does it take a few days?
No, generally one episode in one day, which was always over 100 pages of dialogue, which is a lot. Yeah. Yeah. That's why, back in the 80s and the 90s, our typical day, we would start this camera blocking at 9:15 in the morning, and an easy, quote unquote, show, we'd be done by 7:30 at night. Then if there were explosions or fires or weddings or car crashes, I think the latest that we ever finished was 4:45 in the morning. And that's mostly one episode. And then we started to do, when money started to get tighter, we started to do segments from other episodes. And the idea behind that was, once the set was up in the studio, instead of, if it wasn't being used the next day, instead of the carpenters and the electricians and the prop people knocking down the sets for the next day and then maybe putting them up the day after that, they would tape scenes from an episode two episodes later, if you can understand what I'm saying. So it was like all the scenes in that set from the one episode, then they would do, like I say, scenes from 2 or 3 days later. They found that it was cheaper to do it that way than, like I say, not,
makes sense.
Because on a soap opera, it was a 24-hour, not 7 days a week, 24-hour, 5-day-a-week operation. Because as soon as we finished the last set, the prop people came in, and they would take, if the set, whatever set we had, I'm sorry to jump around, but the studio was very large, and we usually used 6 sets in a day. 3 on one side of the studio and 3 on the opposite side. And we would move from one set to the next and tape all the scenes in that set.
Would props and set decoration have these sets ready before you all come in the morning? Is that
yes.
All right.
Yes.
So you knew you would have to shoot these scenes in these certain sets.
Exactly. Just say on a Monday we finish for the day, and the restaurant scene, the restaurant set is not going to be used for the next few days. As soon as we're done, the prop people come in, they take away all the dishes and the glasses and the silverware, and they pack those away, and then they roll the tables out. In the meantime, the lighting people are taking the lights down, and then once everything is out of the set, then the carpenters come in and they start unhinging all the walls, because although it's just a set, and they have to be carted away and stored and that was very, very expensive to do. There was a warehouse about 15 blocks away, and every night when we were done, these huge trucks were outside, and the carpenters would load all the sets going out to go be stored in the warehouse, and then they had to bring in the sets that were being used the next day. So then they would build the sets for the next day, and then the prop people had to come in and put in all the furniture and, lamps and rugs and all this. And then the electricians, the lighting director, would come in at 3 a.m, and he and all the electricians would light the set for the next day's shooting. So it was 24 hours a day. People would, even shows today, the average person just sits at home and thinks, okay, they did a TV show. But, people don't really realize what goes into it. And it's a lot of work, a lot of planning, a lot of logistics, and by a lot of people.
A well-oiled machine, though. It sounds like it.
Yes,
you got to
exactly.
know when to come in, do your stuff there.
That's exactly right. And everybody has a specific job, and different unions. Like the prop guys can't move a set wall.
Right.
They have to call for the carpenters to come in, and we need this part of the wall moved a little so a camera can get through.
Wow.
So
did snowstorms or anything ever delay this process?
Not really. We taped snowstorms. I remember there was a hurricane, I think in the 80s, that came right over Manhattan, and we, as long as there wasn't a power outage and lights were on,
the show must go on.
Yeah. And if there was a snowstorm, what they would do is they would get the crew, all the camera people, hotel rooms, so we wouldn't have to go home, wherever home would be. Long Island, people living in Long Island or New Jersey or Westchester or, wherever, or Brooklyn. And there was a nice hotel right around the corner, so they would get us hotel rooms.
Nice.
And we would know ahead of time, if there was a bad snowstorm coming, so we would bring, a bag of clothes in, and just to be prepared. Because they would rather pay for the hotel rooms than not have people show up the next day, and there weren't enough people to do an episode. So,
wow,
yeah.
So I was curious about that.
Yeah.
Now, how far in advance are you shooting for? Are there seasons?
No. Soaps went 52 weeks in a year. I'd say about 47 weeks
of episodes
we shot with no reruns in soap operas. We were off maybe 2 weeks at Christmas time, a week at Easter time, and then Memorial Day, Labor Day, we would be off. But other than that, all summer. It was a year-round thing. And we would shoot an episode usually about 6 weeks in advance.
In advance, okay, that's how it works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we shot, just say today wouldn't be shown for about 6 weeks. It had to do with editing and adding music and sound effects, and all that takes time. And if there were any changes to the storyline and something had to be redone, at least there was time before it aired. So that's why they did it like 6 weeks in advance.